The high seas, the desire for freedom, and the call to adventure. One Piece is a vast world-spanning epic that depicts these things brilliantly. Over 1,000 chapters, 100 volumes, and more than 20 years of publication has allowed the series to create some of the most ambitious plotlines in comics. But as is true with all epics, One Piece came from very humble beginnings. It all stemmed from a tiny nook in the corner of the world. The East Blue Saga spans the first 100 chapters and first 6 story arcs of One Piece. It acts as the perfect entryway to the story, yet it's dismissed by some as boring or a slow start. There's been a suggestion by some people that One Piece doesn't get good until hundreds of chapters in. Why is that? Well, after nearly 25 years, the story of One Piece has expanded incredibly, with the stakes of the story skyrocketing, and both the plot and action becoming more complex and dynamic. Some readers of shonen manga come for one thing: action. Over-the-top power-ups and abilities and emotionally charged fights. Now, East Blue isn't lacking in action at all, quite the opposite. There's plenty of fighting and clashing of abilities, but people who come from other popular series with flashy power-ups and crazy laser beam attacks expecting something similar will not find what they're looking for in East Blue. One Piece never has and never will be a story where the main focus is action and displays of absurd anime power, yet some people dismiss it simply because of this. The main point of One Piece is adventure and unwinding the mysteries of the world. But with that being said, the action of One Piece is nothing to scoff at, unless you're expecting what I mentioned before, like what is present in a more typical shonen story. The action of modern-day One Piece is almost unrecognizable from that of East Blue, save for the dynamic art and cartoonish choreography. East Blue lays the foundations for the series and tells a more compact, relatively low-stakes, yet still very compelling story compared to later sagas that culminate after hundreds of chapters of build-up. My point is that the story has grown exponentially, and the beginning feels small knowing what's to come. The action is less flashy and the characters are not as powerful, which turns away people who read shonen manga purely for action. But the story does so much more than just that. East Blue is our first glimpse at the type of story One Piece is. Its core is adventure, sailing around and exploring locations, and it does a great job of establishing the world. Early on, the geography of the world is revealed, and it's made clear that East Blue is a sort of prologue area, as the most important seas for pirates is shown to be the Grand Line. What this does is allow Oda to set up the future story and form and flesh out the core of the main cast. The way the saga is structured creates multiple stories that are somewhat self-contained, as each location has its own story, yet also are connected by plot threads and mesh together very well. One thing Oda does very well later into the series is setting up plot lines well in advance, and we see the beginnings of that here in East Blue, as one of the major plot lines is set up multiple arcs before it becomes prevalent. When we're first introduced to Nami in Chapter 9, we learn that she intends to buy a certain village and hates pirates. This plot point is left unattended until Chapter 50, where upon seeing a certain pirate's bounty, she steals the ship and abandons the main cast, saying how she wishes to be free. It isn't for another volume's worth of material that this plot is brought to the forefront of the story. This dedication to planning out events ahead of time allows for a seamless, very cohesive and satisfying story. The main point of each arc is introducing a member of the crew, exploring their character and fleshing out their beliefs, but each arc is also used to explore a core theme: the meaning of treasure, effects lies hold, willpower versus military power, and the weight of shouldering a burden, to name a few. Themes in One Piece are often explored from multiple perspectives, which adds to their depth and shows how wildly different these ideas can be interpreted. The primary antagonists of arcs are often chosen as vehicles to explore the themes and how their ideals contrast against Luffy's. For example, in the Orangetown arc, we have the theme of the true meaning to treasure. From Luffy's perspective, treasure isn't necessarily gold and gems. It's his hat, an item that holds great sentimental value. To Buggy, treasure is gold and gems. It's an extremely materialistic view, and his willingness to trample over others' views of treasure is what eventually contributes to his downfall. In Syrup Village, we have the theme of what effects lies hold. Via Usopp, we see that lies can be told in a way that benefits others, whether it be silly tales told to cheer someone up or trouble causing that results in a sense of security. With good intent, these lies are shown to have positive effects. From Kuro, we see a false identity formed for the purpose of betrayal and personal gain, a lie told with intent to harm, and harm it does. The lie he tells is fickle and leads to his downfall, as when a ruse backed by malice is uncovered, justice is often dealt. In the Baratier arc, we're introduced to Krieg, a character who believes might is right and anything can be accomplished solely by having the advantage in numbers and military might. Contrastingly, Luffy is a pirate captain who only just recently obtained a ship and his first couple of members, but he is shown to have strong will, something Krieg lacks completely. Complete and utter belief in yourself because you know what you can do, not what weapons can do for you. After many attempts, Luffy is able to destroy Krieg's armor, which in turn shatters his beliefs as it shows no amount of might can stand in the face of a strong will. Oda is able to create simple yet compelling plotlines with no lack of action that resonate greatly with its core theme, without that theme coming across as too blatant or ham-fisted. The biggest focus for East Blue is introducing the main cast, and damn does Oda create some memorable character introductions. A young boy stabbing himself in the face to prove his mettle. A swordsman battered and starved, tied to a crucifix. A suave chef who brutalizes a customer for wasting food. Each of these introductions ties into the core of the character. Luffy displays his determination, Zoro shows the strength of his will, Sanji shows how he backs up his convictions. These introductions work so well because they immediately draw clear pictures of who these characters are, and give a glimpse into where their stories are headed. With Luffy, it sets a precedent for the strength of his determination, and we later see how he perseveres through incredibly tough situations because of it. Zoro's will to accomplish his goal is clearly shown immediately, and later in the saga he faces a crushing defeat at the hands of the very man that represents his goal, yet his will never once wavers. The importance of not wasting food is highlighted by Sanji's introduction. Later in the arc, when we see his backstory, we learn why he holds so firmly onto that belief. It's impressive how well Oda utilizes character introductions to set up the direction of each character's story. Another aspect of storytelling Oda utilizes very well is side characters. In East Blue, parental figures and their sacrifices are used effectively to show what has caused our main characters to grow into the people they are. In Chapter 1, Shanks sacrifices his arm to save Luffy, showing Luffy the lengths he would go to save his friend. This action is clearly a key moment for Luffy's development, because time after time throughout the series, we see Luffy go to extreme lengths for the sake of his friends. Sanji and Zeph get stranded on a rock with a minimal amount of food, not enough for two people to survive on. Zeph sacrifices his leg, eating it, which allows Sanji to take all the food. Why? Because Sanji had the same dream as him. Afterwards, Sanji is shown to be extremely selfless, especially when it comes to food. The experience instilled in him a belief to always help others, to always feed starving people when they need it. In Nami's flashback, we see the sacrifice Bellmare makes for Nami and Nojiko to live on, and because she couldn't bring herself to deny she had a family. In the present timeline, we learn Nami has been shouldering an extreme burden, making a huge sacrifice for the sake of her village. Bellmare instilled in Nami a desire to always do what she believes is right, and we see this present in her character for the rest of the series. Oda does a brilliant job of creating extremely emotionally resonant relationships that depict very clearly how the personalities of the main cast formed, and add so much to our understanding of them. The self-sacrificial nature Oda has given many parental figures in the series ties into a major theme of the story being inherited will, as they are very clear examples of the generational passing of the torch. The beliefs and values of the previous generation are instilled into and live on via the current generation. When compared to the later story arcs, yeah, East Blue is somewhat unimpressive, but that's only natural, right? I mean, no epic as large as One Piece can believably jump right into extremely high-stakes stories without a massive risk of running the story into the ground far too soon. Both time and delicacy are needed in order to lay the foundation substantial enough to support hundreds upon hundreds more chapters worth of story. But despite it being only the beginning, there isn't a lack of carefully crafted storytelling. East Blue consists of multiple very carefully planned out plots that do a great job of telling their stories and exploring their themes without either of those things being the main point of the arcs. It manages to do those things while focusing heavily on establishing the characters, which is a goal it accomplishes handedly. Many people praise One Piece for what it becomes later on, without realizing that everything they praise about those later arcs is present here in East Blue, that East Blue establishes perfectly what One Piece is at its core. If Oda didn't take the time he did to plant the seeds for the future of the story, One Piece would be drastically different from what it is today, and there's a good chance it wouldn't even be around at all. East Blue is, without a doubt, the perfect introduction to the story of One Piece.